Best Picture. Chai and Juan, thank you so much for your time today talking about Lost in the Jungle. It is such a fascinating documentary and really goes in some unexpected directions, which was exciting. Let's start right at the beginning of the project. Obviously, this story was global news in 2023, but how did you each get connected to this story of the plane crash?
You know, I'm Colombian, so I was here in Bogota when the story started to unfold. You know, at the beginning was just but the crash of a plane, you know, which didn't brought that much of attention. But once, it was understood that there were four survivors and there were children, it became huge in Colombia. So, of course, as a documentary filmmaker, you know, I got very interested into it. And once the kids arrived after the rescue and the indigenous rescue teams were in Bogota, you know, I started to reach out to them and try to find ways to get into the story. And at the same time, you know, I am represented by WME, and so is Chai and Little Monster. So that's when, you know, I got to understand that Little Monster and Chai were very interested in the story. And, you know, we got together to be able to do the film together.
Yeah, Chai, what was your first entry into this story, your first connection with Juan on the story?
Well, I mean, I was following the story from afar, and, you know, it really struck me as, you know, an astonishing fact that these four children were able to survive for 40 days in the Amazon, but also that there was a real mystery there, which is like, how is that possible? And also I had kind of this, I don't know, like a instinct or an interest in understanding the circumstances of this 13-year-old girl indigenous girl who somehow was able to do, you know, the impossible. Like how did she keep her siblings alive, including an 11-month-old? And an awareness that through telling her story would be an opportunity for her, you know, in that it would be an empowering thing for her. And so I think that was what was really interesting to me. Like I was very interested in the children, and I wanted to understand what happened and who was this young girl who had this extraordinary will to live and somehow know how to create, like to find, you know, to be able to survive.
Yeah, and it's not just about the kids as well. That's an extraordinary part of the story, but the film also explores so many other very unexpected themes. How did you know that there was enough story here to make a feature?
I mean, there's so much story, right? Like, I feel like we could have gone on for hours. And I think we're interested in the complexities of this film, of the story. Like, that is kind of the mystery. That's what's so crazy about the story, is that you have, I mean, just between the military and the indigenous rescuers, like two totally different belief systems and a conflict that's been transpiring for years and years and years in the jungle. And they're able to somehow find common ground. And that's amazing. Like, you know, it's all about, what always kind of moves me about this is that the individual courage of everyone involved, you know, and the goodwill to to plunge yourself into the jungle searching for four strangers, you know. And I also was interested in this idea of what are the circumstances of this 13-year-old girl who was able to find her way through.
Yeah, and telling the children's side of this story through animation the way you've done here is such a brilliant choice. Walk me through that creative decision and how you landed on this as the best way to represent what those kids went through.
I mean, it was a really delicate thing because we're talking about children and memory and an incredibly traumatic experience. And, you know, we were very committed in bringing their story to life. And so how do you allow a viewer to try to see the world through their eyes? And so animation seemed like a respectful way forward. And, you know, when the rescuers weren't able to find them in a way, I was like, we shouldn't be able to see them, you know. And moreover, those images of when they were found were so shocking that, you know, it really underlined how important it was to be respectful here. And, you know, I really am happy with the ending of the film where you see them working with, you know, the mental health professionals and working with those figurines of the plane and the figurines of their siblings, because it's a way of us explicitly recognizing the very mindful approach to how to work with these kids, and also our commitment to creating a film that really does express their point of view. Because it's something that most domestic violence victims and many Indigenous girls don't have that opportunity to tell their own story. And that's kind of the problem here. And so this was our way of trying to empower them.
From a visual standpoint, how did you land on what you wanted those sequences to look like, shooting them on the plates of the jungle and the line art? It's very beautiful and haunting as well. How did you land on what these needed to look like?
Well, thank you for saying that, because I actually am kind of averse to animation in general and nonfiction because I find it can be manipulative. And, you know, I was like, we need to find a way that is like both can conjure the childlike wonder of what it must be like to be alone in a jungle, especially that they're more comfortable in the jungle than they are. Like Leslie had never seen a skyscraper. It was her first time on a plane. Like, and so that it's both like a comfort and also an enchanting like environment, but the feelings are complicated. So like I didn't want like full animation where you're showing all these expressions. Like it had to be literally a line drawing that you can fill in with your own imagination and also focus on the words that are their real words.
Yeah, I want to talk about those real words. Like you said, it's so haunting that we don't really see the children until the very end. And because of that, the tone of their interviews is very different from all the other interviews throughout the film. Can you tell me a little bit more about what it was like to interview these children and hear their story, especially in contrast to all the other interviews that are in the film?
Well, we worked very closely with the mental health professionals who've been working with the children because we were very mindful not to re-traumatize them. And also, but yet with the goal of allowing them to tell their own stories. So, you know, and also they're kids. So they're looking at it in a, like, you know, when Solene's laughing with them about the monkeys, like that was funny. Like it's these sparks of what makes them human. It's the sparks of what makes it real. Like that's the authenticity is like the, you know, or Leslie's frustration because I mean, I'm the mother of, I have 2 children and I can just imagine my children in that. I can't imagine them in that situation, you know, and I can just imagine the tears, the complaining, the like, how do you motivate them to keep on walking? Like, you know, you're injured, you're carrying a baby, the baby's starving. Like I can't. And so, you know, we were just very mindful of their kids and their memories, like they were starving and their memories can be unreliable but it is their reality. So it was just trying to like really find a delicate crafted way through. That could allow access for someone who has no experience in this to try to imagine themselves in their shoes.
Yeah, Juan, what was your experience with those interviews as well?
Very powerful, you know, because of course there was in Colombia very big, you know, question mark about that. You know, like of course everybody wanted to talk to them, everybody wanted to have the opportunity to be with them. So for us was literally a privilege to be able to talk to them. And the moment we got to see them for the first time, you know, we were in a room and then they just suddenly came in and it was like watching, you know, Mick Jagger. I don't know. It was like seeing some superstars, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, and they were just like so humble and so beautiful and so tender that you couldn't really imagine what it was like for them to be alone for, you know, like it just like broke our heart. And at the same time, we felt like so honored and so privileged and it gave us, like, I think the inspiration and the motivation to make this right. You know, at the end, we made this because we care, you know, and because I care about those kids now very much. And that was for us, you know, more than just a good documentary, it was a mission, you know, like to make this thing right for them. So it was just for me a huge privilege, an emotional privilege, you know, a beautiful, you know, experience of life. And just extraordinary to see somebody has so much strength and power and knowledge and being at the same time so humble. And having to have had such a crazy, unbelievable tragedy behind and having the strength to actually, you know, endure all that process. So for me, it was just like to seeing a superhero, you know, and it was, you know, just, yeah, an honor, I guess.
At what point in the process did you interview those kids? Were those the first interviews that you completed? Was it in the middle? Where was that?
It was at the very end of the process. So like we actually had a film that really worked of just the special forces and the indigenous rescuers. But again, like, you know, it's a complicated story. And we were most interested in this idea that, you know, they needed an opportunity to tell their story. And It was very important to me also, having come off of the previous film I had made called The Rescue, about the Thai soccer team that was stuck in the cave, where, how their story is told will change their lives. And, and I think for Leslie, I was just very committed that she had to have the opportunity to share her own story in her own words.
Yeah, like you said, there are so many other people that you interview throughout this film: the soldiers, the Indigenous Search Party, family members. There are a few specific people I wanted to ask about. First of all, I thought it was fascinating that Manuel participated in the film despite his arrest. I had no idea about that entire part of the story. I don't know a better way to ask this. Was he aware that you wouldn't be pulling any punches when it came to the abuse allegations that are levied against him in the film?
I mean, the reality is that we once we started to make the film, we started very fast. So we got the first interviews actually weeks after the kids came back. So at that moment, the army knew about the rumors that were about his allegations, and we knew that there were rumors about it, but there was nothing proven. There was no official accusation that was not there. So when I did that interview, I went into it having an idea of what could have happened, but not really knowing if it was actually real or not. So I made the questions knowing that it could be true, and that's how he, responded to them. And then eventually we got to know that he was put into prison, but actually he was condemned just a month ago. So, it took a long, almost 2 years to him to actually be condemned for the accusation. So it was just, yes, it took, yeah, it was, I guess it was just the fortune of being able to do it fast, the reason why we were able to get the interview. Otherwise, it would have been impossible.
Well, another interesting dichotomy is the tension between the Indigenous Search Party and the military. Tell me about that experience of interviewing numerous members of both sides, and what was your experience? Were you able to feel that tension in any of those interviews as well?
Absolutely. I think at the beginning, because they're completely different. Colombia is a country that has very different types of people, and especially in this case, completely different universes and belief systems, right? So at the beginning of their storytelling, you could feel the tension, right? But I got to know them after the situation. So actually, the reality is that when I got to meet them, they were already really close friends. They were making jokes. They were like brothers, and actually, when we got them to film in the Amazon, they are really close friends. So it was beautiful to see for me, that people that was completely from different sides that normally or usually could hate each other because of many reasons, actually got together in such a beautiful way. So yes, in the storytelling at the beginning, there were tensions, but the reality is that once you get to see them together, they're just really good friends right now.
That's amazing. Well, I also thought it was interesting that you interviewed Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, but I think I only saw him show up once, maybe twice in the final cut. Was there a reason that he wasn't more included in the final cut?
I mean, he played a role, a very important role, but it's not necessarily his story. And I think, we use, there's a finite amount of real estate, and everything has to be intentional. So we use the essential parts. And, I really like his speech at the end in the credits, because I think that he gets to the essence of what you can extrapolate from the story and how it's emblematic of Colombia and a way forward. But, the types of films we are interested in making are visceral and trying to put you there. And, so that's why we really relied on those first person accounts.
Well, we talked about the animation pieces earlier, but the film also heavily utilizes reenactments to tell the story. From a visual standpoint, what did you want this film to look like when shooting those reenactments?
As real and authentic as possible. And the Amazon is impenetrable, and somehow to bring the jungle to life the way that the indigenous actually see it. And also the way the military sees it, because that's kind of the point, is that there are these two different belief systems there, and everyone was kind of in the thick of it. So, and I think there was something too about having the real people show us what they did, because that's also their way of telling their story. So it was it's a reenactment, but I kind of call it almost a reenactment light, because you have the real people showing you how they did it. And that, that was very helpful and useful for us, and a way to place a viewer in New York, like in that position.
Well, as you went through all of these interviews, because there really are so many people that contribute to this story, what surprised you in the making of this film as this story unfolded, that it's not just kids were lost, kids are found, but that there's so much more to the story? What surprised you as you dug deeper?
I think the real journey of the military and these elite special forces, who are for the most part Catholic, to respecting the indigenous belief systems, was that surprised me, impressed me. Like, I thought it was kind of extraordinary. And, because, these are special forces who are saying there's something supernatural at play. And so that was very surprising. Juan, what about you?
I don't know, it's surprising, but like the impactful was the Leslie, like, and the children, and to see, such a tender and beautiful creatures, be such a strength, like bring such a strength to the whole thing, like exactly that moment that I described, when you're imagining these people, and these kids, and then they just come and they're just the most beautiful little things. And that was for me a really strong moment, to get to meet them and to see how humble and beautiful, and they're just kids, and you think that they're these superheroes, but they're just really kids who are superheroes, but they're just kids, and so it was just a privilege,
Yeah, I think that's what impacts me so much, especially when we see the kids at the end, is that they aren't superhuman. They are just kids, and what incredible feats that these kids were able to accomplish, especially Leslie taking care of her siblings. It's so beautiful.
I think that's very true. I think also there's something special about Leslie. The moment, the moment I met her, I was like, oh, this is an extraordinary person. And, and I mean, truly, like, the worst moment of her life, she's able to kind of break a karmic cycle of some sort, and like find her own way and find her own voice. So there, I think she should not be underestimated, and she will go someplace that's very special.
Yeah, and I love the honesty. There's a moment towards the end. I don't remember her exact quote, but where she talks about that she thought about leaving her siblings, and then changed her mind. And I love that you included that, because that was so real and honest, and made those moments feel so much more impactful, that she did stay and she did save all of their lives. It's really beautiful. I know that every filmmaker learns something on every project that they encounter. Every project is different. And this is your first time working together, the two of you, alongside Jimmy Chin, the other co-director. For each of you, what did you learn? What did you learn making this film? Especially, what did you learn from each other working together for the first time?
I would work with Juan Camilo any day. And also, if I were ever lost in the jungle, I'd like to be with Juan Camilo. Juan Camilo, like, it just, the sheer energy, the sheer tenacity. Like, I'm known for being very tenacious and like very much like a perfectionist in the work. And it's a real joy when you meet someone who complements that. And, and it's also, there's something to, I think that directors in general can be kind of ornery and like possessive and those sort of things. But Juan Camilo and I are similarly like intellectually flexible and curious, and that's fun. Like, I try really to have fun when we're making these films, because we're so lucky to be able to do it. And also, there is something inherently very hopeful to this work, and that was never a question between us. Like, we both kind of knew that. And so, I don't know, it really was like quite synergistic, and, we have other things we're working on together now, and it's a real joy. It's always nice to evolve, especially when you're like, I don't know, 15 films, 20 films in, like me,
And for me, it was just an honor, you've seen these films of Jimmy and Chai and heard about them. And, like, if you're in the documentary universe, you know about them, like, so for me, it was like, wow, it was such an honor to be able to work together with them. They accepted me in such a beautiful way and to be able to learn from them, because they really have such an experience in working in these complicated environments and complex stories, and in a way to attack all the different challenges that we had in this, and to be able to do it creatively together, and to understand also, and to be able to put my knowledge of the country into the film, and to be able to receive it in such a generous way. I think it was just, like an honor for me to be able to work with Chai and with Yumi, and yeah, it was just, and Little Monster, because I have to say that, it's, we are the face of all of this, but Little Monster is a company with amazing people, amazing and talented people. So it was just like, I felt great to go to New York and cut a film and be able to work with such a superstar. So no, it was like going to university and learning every day. So I was very happy and honored to be able to work with them.
That's amazing. Well, Chai, you described yourself as a perfectionist just now. So many artists and directors would describe themselves that way. So I'm always curious to ask, one, I don't know if you would describe yourself as a perfectionist or not, but I'm always curious when you're done. As a perfectionist, there's always tweaking. There's always another thing you can change and fix and adjust. When do you, other than hitting a deadline, I guess, when do you know that you're done?
I mean, I don't think you're ever done. And Nat Geo, this is my 7th film in 10 years with them. They know they'd have to just rip it out of my hand. But it's really special to have such a good, close relationship with your studio where they totally understand my process, right? And yeah, I kind of think you're done when there are no regrets. And, I don't have any about this film, but every film can be better. Like if you just spend more time, that's kind of our process as we edit for a minimum of 16 months. Like, it's like, I don't know how many films I'm going to make in my life. So the point is, like, you have to give it everything, because what's the point otherwise?
I agree. I think you just have to give everything, and to make it right. But I think that sometimes there's like these conspiracy things that just happen that you don't understand. And this film just came to an end when, the situation with Manuel was resolved, when the kids were back with their family. So it's just kind of life, working in weird ways to make things, be at the right moment in the right way, and I think this film kind of made that all happen, that if we would have taken all the time, like, we couldn't have included all those things in the film. So I think it's just a miracle that the film exists, that the kids, happen to, like that everything like kind of conspired for it to be what it is. So yeah, we could have been done forever, but I think now it was just the perfect time.
Well, I can't wait for more people to see it. Chai, you mentioned you're both working on upcoming projects together. Is there anything you can share about the stories that you're exploring?
It's all top secret, but it's all exciting and similarly exhilarating and adventureful, adventure filled.
Awesome. I would expect nothing less. Well, Juan and Chai, thank you so much for your time and for the film. Can't wait for more people to see it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.